What's up everyone, it's Scotty with MoneyVest. So if you guys can see me and hear me, just give me a thumbs up. I just want to make sure the audio and the video is working well. Thank you so much for joining for our live stream. We do have inflation numbers, so CPI numbers coming out in under 30 minutes. Very, very important numbers that are scheduled for 8:30 a.m. Eastern. And that, of course, is going to be the Consumer Price Index. Again, if you guys can see me and hear me, just give me a thumbs up. I just want to make sure the audio and the video is working well. QQQs pre-market are basically flat, so down about 4 basis points right now. S&P 500 down about 10 basis points. So again, not a lot of movement across the board for the indices after hitting brand new all-time highs yesterday. Of course, S&P crossing over 5,600 for the first time ever, and the Nasdaq crossing over 18,600 for the first time ever as well. So hope you're doing great and are ready for yet another really important key economic data where the Federal Reserve is going to be paying close attention. And we've got one more meeting coming up in July. So at the end of July, we've got the FOMC meeting and the press conference from the Federal Reserve as well. So if the audio and the video is good, just give me a thumbs up. Perfect. We are good. Audio is good. Works just fine. You also got to vote for CPI, so core CPI. Let me know what your expectations are, whether we're going to see core CPI above, below, or at 3.5%. And right now, you'll notice the core CPI expectations are to increase from 3.4 to 3.5%. So if you come over to some of the charts for inflation and go over to the 12-month last 20 years worth of data, really over the last, say, 12 months, we've just been consolidating sideways for headline CPI between 3 and as much as 3.7%. So that's really where the CPI has been. You can see that we've just been consolidating in that range sideways. So today expectations are for headline CPI to come down, I believe, down to 3.1. So year over year, you can see that we're expecting from 3.3 down to 3.1%. That is the expectation, but all eyes are going to be on the core number. Core inflation, excluding for food and energy, at 3.4 from last month in May, and the numbers we're getting today for the month of June expected at 3.5%. So if you remove for everything and only include for items less energy and food, you'll notice that we have been on this very consistent downtrend, and the numbers are expected to give us an uptick a little bit higher at 3.5, which obviously is going to not be super great, similar to what we witnessed back in February and March of 23, going into 2023, February to March of 23. So slight increase from 5.5 to 5.6%. So once again, thank you so much for joining, everyone. Very, very important numbers coming out in under 30 minutes. We'll take a look at how the markets react, obviously, along with a lot of individual stocks. So for example, Nvidia is pushing up over 15, 16 basis points right now. Tesla, on the other hand here, selling off. Last time I checked, it was down 30, 40 basis points. And we got Apple here down 38 basis points after winning reaching an agreement or a deal with EU regulators to open up mobile payments system to rivals. So if you read further, the Commission has decided to accept commitments offered by Apple, and these commitments address our preliminary concerns that Apple may illegally have restricted competition when it comes to mobile wallets on iPhones, and the EU formally launched an investigation relating to Apple Pay in 2020, and the probe looked at the terms and conditions Apple sets for integrating Apple Pay in apps and websites, as well as concerns around the tap and go technology and alleged refusals of accessing Apple Pay. And they have finally come to a conclusion that they will accept commitments from Apple to allow access to its tap and go payments technology to rivals, bringing an end to a 4-year investigation. So it's slightly lower, down about 36 basis points. Tesla is down about 11 basis points. Nvidia continues to move higher to $135, just $5 shy of its own all-time highs. And then if you take a look at, for example, Amazon pre-market, right now we are seeing Amazon, I believe, also very, very flat at the moment. So we are at $200, so a slight increase, trading pretty much near all-time highs for Amazon as well. Talking about volatility, so VIX here, slightly higher, up close to 1% at just under 13. And crude oil. Now, this is the interesting thing, that crude oil was actually up in the month of June. And that's probably one of the reasons why we're expected to see a slight increase in inflation, because energy prices do indeed affect other parts of the economy, other parts of CPI. So indirectly or indirectly, it does have an impact on the overall consumer prices. And in the month of June, energy prices were up 5.6% for crude oil, right? So crude oil prices are higher. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of an increase in energy, which does get reflected in maybe some other parts of inflation and CPI report. But again, we're going to find out in about 22 minutes here. So under 25 minutes, we're going to get the inflation numbers. Till then, I want to just have a conversation with all of you. So thank you so much for joining, and let me know where you guys are joining from. So what part of the world you are tuning in from this morning to take a look at the inflation numbers with me, and I'll give you a shout out for every single person here. Europe already cut rates. Yes, so Jerry, we're aware. ECB already started cutting interest rates. The Federal Reserve is still holding steady. And Jerome Powell's testimony from the last couple of days, once again, reiterating to the idea that they're not there yet. They're still waiting and taking their sweet time until, of course, inflation is moving towards the 2% target. Now, they're not going to wait until inflation is at 2% or lower. They're already going to be cutting interest rates while inflation is moving down to its 2% target, right? Because there's a momentum effect. It's kind of interesting that Jerome Powell says this, that there's this momentum effect for inflation, and they won't wait for inflation to get down to 2%. They'll start cutting prior to inflation getting down to 2%. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case on the way up because there was a momentum to inflation moving higher as well. And during that time, Jerome Powell constantly said that inflation is indeed transitory. It's going to come down. There's going to be some softening in the overall prices, and we're going to see inflation come back down. It's only transitory or temporary in nature as it was going higher. So, of course, there was that momentum pushing inflation higher in the first place, which should have also required a proactive approach of increasing interest rates prior to inflation getting above 2.5% or 3%. At one point, got up to as much as 8 to 9%. So we've obviously made a lot of progress, but at the same time, there's still, of course, a lot of work still yet to do from a Federal Reserve standpoint, as it's come from 9% year-over-year change to now sitting at well over 3.3, but still nowhere near close to the Fed's target of 2%. So those are some things to consider, because in my opinion, unemployment is starting to kind of cave a little bit. We're starting to see the labor market weaken slightly because a lot of the job creation is coming from the government sector. Unemployment pushing higher, of course, to 4.1%. That's up from 4 and 3.9. So those eventually, sooner or later, as mentioned in my other video, which I highly recommend that you watch, because a lot of the times analysis right now continues to feel irrelevant, because if I'm talking about the fundamentals, the valuations, the technicals, or rather anybody's talking about the markets right now, it feels irrelevant to talk about the markets right now because of the very fact that we're seeing all-time highs almost every single day. The markets continue to move higher, and as a result, a lot of the analysis or breakdowns on the market can seem somewhat irrelevant. But trust me, on the way up, it can seem a little bit irrelevant, but on the way down, it's going to be very, very helpful. Okay, let me see. Greetings from Finland. Jari, thank you so much for joining. Hi from Barcelona. Marcus, I have a feeling it's coming in hot. David says, Bakersfield, California. Shout out to you guys. Slovakia, Newtontown, Connecticut. We got Timbuktu. David, shout out to you. We got New Hampshire. We got Chicago in the house. Then we got Wakanda. So you think that it's one more green day for the market? It's just kind of hard to say. And, I was kind of working on our scope sheet for the MoneyVest platform, and it's kind of interesting that you asked that question, right? It's interesting that you asked the question of, is there one more day, one more green day for the market? So what we're going to include in our platform eventually in our macro dashboard, which again is going to be available over here, and there's going to be a section for macros alone. It's going to give you a little bit about sort of like the overview of the S&P 500's fundamental technical positioning, and it's also going to give you some out-of-the-box creative analysis with regards to how many win days, what's the streak of the current winning days or green days? What is the current streak of the current losing days? The maximum, the minimum, where we are in that entire cycle, and a lot of the other things like MoneyVest Index. We'll give you some percentile analysis, volatility analysis. So there's going to be a lot of interesting data point that we're going to share, which is going to give you a bit of an idea. Like, for example, if we tell you that, okay, S&P 500 over the last 100 plus years since it's been obviously available, it's had, I don't know, X number of times it's rallied over 10 days in a row, right? Things like that. And if the S&P is rallied over 10 times, 10 days in a row, that gives you a bit of an idea that, okay, now we're getting into some rare circumstances where this is not going to last forever. There's a possibility that, okay, there's a pullback or there's a red day coming any time now. There's going to be some profit taking any day now. And that type of analysis, if I feel, is going to be very, very useful when it comes to trading, when it comes to investment decisions, and of course, looking at long-term potential for the markets. Because all we're trying to do is really understand the risk-reward ratio for the markets. So again, thank you so much for joining, everyone. From Chicago, we got people from California, Portugal, Germany, Vancouver. So we got lots of people from Europe this morning joining in. Simran joining us from Jaipur. So shout out to you. Thank you so much for joining. We got Phoenix, Arizona. We got Iowa. So lots of people, of course, tuning in for inflation. So make sure that you do participate in the poll. We got core CPI today expected at 3.5%. So I want to know all from you guys. We're trying to get to at least 200 votes by the time inflation numbers come out in under 15 minutes now. Whether you believe core CPI is going to be higher than 3.5, at 3.5, or lower than 3.5%. I do believe that there is a possibility that it could be higher, considering that energy prices, so oil prices, crude oil, was higher in the month of June, as I mentioned earlier. And there is a possibility that we do see a slight increase in overall inflation also. So headline inflation, there's a possibility that we do see a bit of an uptick. Right now, the expectations are very optimistic for 3.1. So we'll follow into that, and then we'll take a look at the market's reaction as well. So, I mean, Tesla, every single day, continues to move higher, $263. We got Nvidia pretty much trading at all-time highs at 135. We got Apple trading at all-time highs at 231, 232. Like that's been an incredible rally. I feel like Apple's still flying under the radar. Haven't seen a lot of people discuss Apple, but just take a look at their chart. Absolutely incredible. Just insane how much it's rallied in the last, I'd say, month. Going back as far as actually 2 months. So going back as far as April 19th, the stock is up a little bit, close to 41%. For a company that's worth over $3 trillion to be up over 40% is quite unusual. And then again, Apple and Nvidia are unusual companies to begin with. So incredible run up for, of course, these two stocks here. Let's take a look. 12 days. So Florida, we got people joining from Florida as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. I think Tesla has a shot at 350 by the year end. I wouldn't write it off. For the sole reason because there's a lot of shorts piling up on Tesla. And then we've got the robotaxi event, and we've got, of course, the overall delivery numbers for the entire 2024. And then again, autonomous driving, Optimus. There's going to be a lot of updates. So it's possible that Tesla reclaims, in my opinion, the probability for Tesla to reclaim $1 trillion is very, very high. It's very, very high in 2024. I mean, it only needs to rally another $150 billion, which again, in Tesla terms, is not that much. So in my opinion, I think $1 trillion is possible. I'm not sure exactly if 350 is going to get us there. It's most likely going to pass us beyond the $1 trillion. I'm not sure, but 1 trillion I think is within sight for Tesla. So that's my kind of my view on the company. I'm still, of course, bullish, and I believe it's got tons of potential long term, but we'll continue to see how it ends up performing in 2024. Of course, it's my biggest position, so very excited, very happy to see that it's rallied 50% in the last month and about 80% in the last couple months. Since April 20th low, it's rallied over 80%. Meta is also flying under the radar. Yes, Meta also. I mean, this is a stock that we have analyzed time and time again. Meta was one of the most hated stocks back in 2022 when I was trading at roughly around $80 a share, $88 a share. And again, I still remember doing a live stream during the time when I was traveling, going over Meta's live stream. A lot of comments back in the day talking about how Meta is a company that's dead. It's not going to be doing well. It's not going anywhere. The metaverse is a complete bust, and the company's wasting money. and it's a dying company. Who even uses Facebook? That was kind of like the mentality back then. It's like, who even uses Facebook? And Zuckerberg is just wasting money on the metaverse. But no, I mean, the core business continued to be strong. The core business was incredibly strong. I just want to make sure the live stream is coming through well. I'm starting to feel that. Is it hanging a little bit? Is my screen frozen or something? Because I am having trouble loading up the chart here in TradingView. Okay, lagging a little bit. Streaming is okay. All right, perfect. So yeah, I mean, coming back over to the markets, I'm just having a hard time loading up the chart here for TradingView. TradingView does suck a lot of power out of any system, so I'm down to 44%. Should be fine. Okay, let's go from here. Perfect. So yeah, $1 trillion for Tesla, I believe, is a possibility. I wouldn't be surprised if it touches that level in 2024. But whether it's going to get up to $350 or $400 is a whole different question. Certainly can. It's got a lot of potential for it. But technically speaking, it's incredibly overextended, overbought at the moment. So I wouldn't necessarily bet on that idea, at least not for the next, like, say, few weeks. Robotaxi, sure, is an event, can get us up to $300. In fact, we did a poll in our community, in our Discord, asking everyone if you believe that Tesla is going to be getting up to $300 by Robotaxi Day. Majority of people, 42% of our members, said yes, they believe that Tesla is indeed going to get up to $300 by Robotaxi Day. And a small 16 to 17% were even more bullish, expecting Tesla to get up to $350 by Robotaxi by August 8th, which would be quite literally insane. My calls are going to be in the money, deep in the money. I've got 295 calls, and then I've also got 350 calls, which I don't think are going to hit anytime soon. So yes, confident in Tesla's ability to perform long term. Video's hanging a bit. It seems to be good for some people, but it's lagging for others. So anyway, we got 9 more minutes, folks. 9 minutes until inflation data. Make sure that you do participate in the poll. We got 143 votes. Right now, we're trying to get to 200 votes by the time inflation numbers come out. So do participate in the poll here so that we can take a look at what everybody's expecting in terms of those numbers. And then, of course, take a look at the market's reaction live. So I got QQQs here. I'll pull up the S&P 500 in another chart as well. And then we'll take a look at how we are doing in terms of both S&P and the NASDAQ, both indices hitting new all-time highs yesterday, getting up to some extreme levels. So definitely do participate in the poll. Core CPI expected at 3.5%. So that is the number that everyone is expecting, and we'll take a look at the market's live reaction in 8 minutes once the CPI numbers come out. So we're going to come over here. Again, the numbers come out on July 11th, 2024, which is today at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, and we are ready to go, folks. We've got, again, just about 8 minutes left to go. Make sure that you participate in the poll. I would really appreciate that. Helps us get a good data set for what everyone is expecting. Right now, 44% of you guys are expecting inflation, core inflation, to be above, actually below 3.5%. Let me. Okay, now it should be much better because I've connected to the hotspot. Okay, now it should be much better because I've connected to the hotspot. So I believe it should be much better now. All right, so it should be better now. I hope, because I've connected to my own hotspot, and hopefully it is. There's no lags. So hopefully it's better now. Just in time. You got 4 minutes left for inflation data. Just give me a thumbs up if the audio and the video is working now. I reconnected back to the Wi-Fi. I'm not in Dubai right now. I'm in India. And of course, you guys have seen with the constant power outages, there's definitely been a lot of problems. But that's part of the channel, right? That's the beauty of this channel. Is that you go through a lot of power outages, you go through a lot of Wi-Fi issues, but hopefully it is working now. Hopefully there's no issues at the moment with the stream. So just give me a thumbs up if it's working now, and then we should be all set in about 3 minutes, and we've got the inflation numbers coming up.